Hey, hi, what's up? It's Nicole, and today I am going to be answering one of the most frequently asked questions that I get across all of my social media, which is how did I get started touring and how did I get into music photography? I personally barely have the attention span for a YouTube video that is over 10 minutes long, so I'm going to try to be as engaging as possible and as succinct as possible. I got my start with music photography on Tumblr. Would always see live music photos on Tumblr and be like, gosh, that's so cool, like, how do you get into that? I was really curious about it, and when I was 15, I went to go see Pierce the Veil. I saw somebody in the photo pit taking photos, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's a job. I want to do that. After realizing that music photography is a job that you can do, I went back and forth with myself about it a lot. My biggest fear in starting music photography was, one, that I wouldn't be good enough, and two, that people would make fun of me. I ended up just like saying frick it and doing it when I was 17 years old. I started a music blog on Tumblr called What Is So Great About Florida, or What's So Great About Florida. I started that by legitimately just going to local shows or tour packages in my area with a crappy point and shoot camera, getting a good spot, taking photos through the entire set while also, you know, screaming, singing along, dancing, the whole shebang, and then posting them on Tumblr with a show review about my experience. I built up a little bit of a portfolio doing that, and then I figured out through, I think, either Adam O'Machias, Todd Owyang, I just butchered that man's last name. I'm so sorry, but I will link him down below. And this blog at the time, it was called Tour Mom Says, but Megan Thompson, who works at Hopeless Records, she had a blog post about how to request a photo pass. I gathered all of their knowledge and then was able to compose my first emails requesting photo passes. Keep in mind, I did not have a professional camera at this time, so I ended up getting my first photo pass through Sleeping with Sirens in March 2011. They were doing a tour with Of Mice and Men, Woe Is Me, and The Amity Affliction, which, looking back, so stacked. At the time, again, I didn't have a professional quality camera. I borrowed my cousin's DSLR camera to shoot the show and posted the photos on Tumblr immediately. Sleeping with Sirens was blowing up at the time, so I got a lot of notes. After I got my first photo pass, I invested. After I purchased the domain for my Tumblr blog, I applied to shoot Warped Tour that year and I got approved. Also, by the time Warped Tour rolled around, I had saved up enough money to buy my first DSLR camera. My first DSLR camera was nothing special. It was a Canon 180, which that camera came out in 2004 or 2005, and I bought it in 2011, but I bought that body and a 50mm 1.8 lens for it. So after I shot Warped Tour, I really didn't have a lot of time to dedicate to my publication anymore, but I ended up adding contributors. I just didn't have time to focus wholly on music photography and making it happen as I did in high school, because I was working my butt off, sometimes working 2 retail jobs in order to afford to pay for my classes, in order to get a degree, to graduate, to have something. As a Black woman, it was important for me personally to get a degree because I never wanted to give anybody the excuse for any job I applied to ever that the reason I didn't get that job is because I didn't get a degree. So I got a job at Forever 21 and I used that money to pay my way through community college. So after being on a hiatus of kind of shooting shows, not really having the time to focus on running a publication, and having contributors kind of upload content and be the publication for me when I couldn't. In 2014, I got accepted to the University of San Francisco in their media studies program, and fortunately my parents, they had the means to be able to send me to college at that time, and I didn't have to work my way through it anymore, and I didn't have to pay for my classes or room and board. They are covering everything for me, and this right here is 110% what I attribute to the whole reason I'm touring right now in the first place. What a lot of people don't talk about is paying for college or going to college. If you are a music industry professional, most of the people that I know in this industry did not even go to school. It was so important for me to have a degree. I know for people who aren't minorities, it's or are maybe Gen Zers, it's not important at all. But for me, it was so important, and I'm so fortunate to not really have a lot, if any, student debt from going into college, because I had the immense privilege of my parents coming into the means to be able to send me to college in one of the most expensive cities in the world, and not having to work, so I could focus wholly on what I wanted to develop as my career at the time. So when I was going to college, I got a really incredible internship as a photographer at a local music venue called Mezzanine in San Francisco. Mezzanine was an incredible space that was owned and run and operated entirely by women, and it was such an empowering space to be in, and really inspired me and made me believe like I could work in music full time. Those spaces are so important for young women, and I'm happy I had that while going to college during the times that I would get discouraged. I also was a promotions assistant at a local radio station. At the time it was called Live 105, now it's called Alt 105.3. While working at Alt 105.3, I'm gonna call it Live 105 because that's what it was when I worked there. But while working at Live 105, I got to work a lot of different festivals and events as a promotional marketing vendor. I was a runner. I even got asked to be a meet and greet photographer for Bastille's radio station meet and greet. I got to photograph the secret show for the Offspring. I got to do a lot of really cool things that really gave me a taste for events and just the music industry as a whole and what it could really look like if I was consistently working. Basically, that's how I got started in music photography. Moving on to the touring part of this video, the part that's really interesting. So, had no idea what I wanted to do with my life basically until I switched schools, and I got a mentor at my new school, and she really encouraged me to pursue journalism, and she felt that I had a calling for music journalism because in my writing sample to get into this high school, I wrote about something that I was passionate about or something fun that I did that summer. I went to my first Warped Tour that summer and I wrote a show review for it. She encouraged me to keep writing and to pursue music journalism as a career. Funny enough, the next year, Vans Warped Tour started doing something called the pit vlogs, where they had a pit reporter, and I would watch those every single day. Like, they were getting me so excited for my date of Warped Tour. So, needless to say, the second I turned 18 and applications were open, I applied. And I applied, and I applied, and I applied. I applied basically every year up until 2014. So in 2014, I applied, and I thought I was killing it. I thought I killed it with my application video. But unfortunately, I wasn't picked to be a pit reporter. But while applying, I made friends with a couple of the other applicants. So one of the other applicants messaged me and was like, yo, if you don't get pit reporter, you have a bomb personality. You should try working for Truth. They do Warped Tour every single year. You should do it. And I was like, Truth? I'm not an extrovert. What do I look like working for Truth? But when I ended up not getting the pit reporter job, my dreams and hopes were crushed for a good 2 weeks. And then I was just like, you know what? Yeah, like, why don't I apply for Truth? Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? So I ended up applying for Truth, and the application process for Truth was basically making a video about yourself, submitting an online application with your resume and a headshot attached, and then if they liked what they saw from your video and your application and your resume, they would hit you up to a phone interview. I ended up getting a phone interview, and then I ended up getting an invitation to fly out to New York to do in-person interviews. The only thing about in-person interviews with Truth at the time, I don't know if they do it like this now, you were responsible for getting yourself to New York. So if you lived in New York, like, cool. You know, if you lived in the tri-state area, cool. But at the time, I lived in San Francisco. So I used all my money to fly across the country during finals week of my senior year to interview for Truth, and I ended up getting the job approximately 2 weeks before I graduated college, and I went on my first tour with Truth. My first tour with Truth was Mayhem Festival, because at the time they had the A team and the B team. The A team for Truth would do Warped Tour, and then the B team for Truth would do Mayhem Festival. On that tour, like, part of like the touring cycle with Truth that year, it was 3.5, 4 months long, so it consisted of Mayhem Festival, East Coast Surfing Championship in Virginia Beach, Safe and Sound, Oddball Curiosity and Comedy Festival, and then some guerrilla marketing in the Atlanta area and in the tri-state DC area. I completely fell in love with touring at that stage. But when I got home, I knew that like I was in love with touring and it was something I definitely wanted to continue to do, but I didn't know how to continue. I do want to add that on that tour, I was incredibly spoiled. My first tour ever was a bus tour, on a bus, but like on this bus you have all the space in the world. There's only like 8 people on this bus when like it can easily hold 12 people. There's enough space for all of your things. You don't have to worry. Somebody cleans the bus every day. You're making good money. So I was very spoiled going into touring, and then everything else in my touring career has kind of just been me kind of working backwards in a way. So in 2016 I continued touring with Truth. I did High School Nation, and then I did Vans Warped Tour for the first time, which was so incredible. I will literally never forget that summer. So great. And then I did High School Nation again. And then in 2017, I tried my hand at tour managing for the first time via Honest Tea's experiential marketing program, which was the Mobile Tea Garden tour. I was a tour manager for that tour for 2 months. After tour managing for Honest Tea, I was like, okay, this solidifies exactly what I want to do, which is be a photographer and like work with artists. After I had that realization, I hustled and I kept shooting shows, and I just kind of went back to my formula, which was just like going to local shows, even if it meant I had to pay, and then just shooting with whatever camera I had, editing the photos, you know, tagging people, making sure the photos were great, so like I would stand out amongst all of the other photos that were posted from that show, so I can get different artists' attention and eyes on me, and like either have them follow my photography account so they could see what I was up to and what I was posting, to see if they liked my style and like potentially wanted to work with me. But after hustling and doing that for a while, I got the opportunity to go on tour, Vans Warped Tour 2018, with Dollskin as their tour manager and photographer. I met them via actually cold emailing them. One of my friends sent me one of their posts that they were looking for somebody to tour with in summer 2018, and I was like, alright, I'm gonna email. And then fatefully I was gonna go to their show anyway, and the night I was on the way to their show, I ended up getting an email back from them. We met in person, it was cool, and eventually they asked me to be their tour manager for that tour. At the time that I got offered the job, I was working 9 to 5, and I had a really awesome job basically helping build experiential marketing and tours for different brands, and it was a really hard decision to choose to leave my job to go on tour and freelance full-time, but it's something that I don't regret. I had such an amazing time touring with Dollskin and doing Warped Tour, and I made so many great connections, and those connections eventually got me on the tours that I most recently done, which have been Lane 1, Jennifer Lopez, and Last Dinosaurs, doing Chance the Rapper, and then what I was supposed to do this summer, which was really huge, and I don't even want to talk about it because I'm sad. But that is it. That's how I got started touring. That's how I got started in music photography. I hope this was helpful. Hope this was like some entertainment for you. My next video is going to talk about how you, yes, you, can get on tour, and I'm going to be talking about things nobody really talks about. I'm going to answering this question, which is personalities on the road. Like, what gets you hired? What's going to get you fired? What's going to want bands to bring you back on tour and keep touring with you over and over and over and over, and how to create value for yourself as a crew member on the road, and just how to get noticed from like your local scene to working with touring artists. So stay tuned for that. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys later.